Hi, welcome to 151 Garage. I'm Sean, and this is Susan again. So, one of the things I did the last video was I installed all the fuel rail and stuff like that, fuel lines and stuff. I do have a gauge, and I do want the fuel line to basically come down this way and basically underneath the car this way, kind of hidden away from it, out of basically the wind path or whatever. I want to make sure it's protected. Again, it is the fuel line, and the one thing I do want to do is I want to make sure that this is actually secured. So I don't want it just flopping around. I don't want the line being able to pull this, loosen it up or anything like that. That might be bad while you're driving down the highway, having spraying fuel all over the windshield, which is going to be right there. Or inside the AC unit. Yeah. So what I planned on doing is basically making a bracket that goes from one side to the other, coming up here and holding this in place, and also have a line that goes from here down and use a bulkhead fitting, AN bulkhead fitting. It actually goes through the bottom of this to make sure that it is secured. It's not going to rattle. It's not going to move. It's going to be nice and secure there. So I don't want to make sure that's really part of the point of building this whole bracket. I also realized during this whole process of thinking about it that I need a plate on this side that actually holds the throttle cable for when I install a throttle cable on this side to actually work the throttle. So it does need a plate that it anchors to, and I will work on that. So the first and foremost is basically making sure it's functional. Fashionable becomes secondary at that time. So I'm going to make it out of paper, so we are going to do bracket origami again, and we'll see how it works. Okay, for the first step, I want to make it out of poster board. It's thick enough to where it's going to hold the shape. I can cut it easily. I don't have to make it out of metal right away. I can see what works. I can see basically the distances I need. And I know from measuring it that I basically need 2 inches out and about 4 inches up. So I'll go ahead and cut a 6-inch piece out that is approximately 12 inches wide. Again, it won't be that, but it'll give me enough to play with when I get the throttle and everything else set up. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. So, see the brackets right here? Those were getting in the way, so I need to trim it down. I'll trim it a little bit better. When I get it made out of metal, I'll be able to move it around a little bit, both one side or the other. I made slots for these, so I don't actually have to have them on there. I can unscrew them and then slide the whole bracket out. So now the next part is basically, since I have the fuel gauge, or the fuel pressure gauge right there, I need to make a hole for the fuel pressure gauge. So we'll go ahead and move the, mark it, move it, and try to figure out where that's at. And I'll go ahead and set you over on the table, and I'll mark it for you. Now, this right here, again, this is just enough room for me to trim off what I need when I actually make it. And once I put this on, I can trim around the top of it. Trim around the top of it and actually mark it where I want it. Also, it gives me enough area over here where I can actually hook up the throttle cable, however it's going to hook up to this one. So most likely it's going to come through this point right here and hook straight up to this. That way it's a nice straight line. There is no angle to it or anything like that. And it's actually going to mount straight through this part. I did order a new throttle cable, and you'll see it here in probably a week maybe. So the next part is to basically make it out of the metal, which I have back here. It would basically be out of this plate metal. I will have to bend it, make sure it's basically at a nice right angle, drill the hole for this, make sure that the slots go in. Also, I will, after I make this, I will end up getting the fittings to be able to go straight down through there. So this right here, the line will continue out and go down basically right there at the bottom, and it will come through and kind of go under the car when I finally get the whole bottom of it done. So more paper, less headache, and when I finally get it made out of metal, I'll bring this back, I'll trim it out on the metal to see exactly how, or I'll mark it out on the metal, because this right here is a little bit flexible. At least right now I have a rough template of how I'm gonna make it, and then I can always trim and grind and cut what I need out of it. But right there's a good template on basically a starting point. So I'll probably do the cutting and bending tomorrow, because it is late. I do get home later on, so hope to have that all bent and reinstalled and then ready to trim up on Wednesday. So see you then. Okay, so first things first, the bolt slots don't line up. On paper it did, probably because it was torn a little bit, but I can grind these down a little bit and get them to fit. Doesn't even fit that one at all. So this one it fits. I will grind the other one down. I think I'll go further in with that one and see where it goes from there. So I'll be back shortly, and we'll see. Okay, so you have that. I think I need to bend it a little bit. It is sitting down a little bit, so I'm gonna flatten out this bottom piece. Again, I'm just hammering it, doing whatever I need to get it to fit. Now, this right here is still rough, so I will smooth everything out, file it out, sand it on my belt sander or bench sander, and make sure it's all nice and even. But that's pretty much what I want it to look like. The gauge will go right about there, and it will basically cut around the back of the gauge, so it won't stand out, it won't be square like this. I will round off all this stuff right here. Just I wanted to make sure I got all this together before I actually messed around with it. Okay, so I have this marked, which happens to be the center location for when this is installed. It's basically the port for the gauge. Now I'm going to drill the hole a lot larger, so that way I don't have to worry about fitting exactly perfect, but it should center fairly well, and we'll adjust if we need to. Okay, I'll go drill it real quick and we'll show again. So the gauge is installed, the hole is dead center, so it's threaded in perfectly. These are all lined up as much as they're gonna be. Again, once this goes up, it'll line up perfectly. Now the step is to basically trim out this right here. So I don't want it square. I want to actually follow the contour of the gauge where it goes down and then it's going to go under. Or I don't want it sticking up this high. I just did it this way just in case. So the next step on this one will be basically trimming out this. Since I know the center of this is perfect for the fitting, and the center of the fitting is perfect for here, I'll just measure out from the fitting or from the center of the hole and basically go around the gauge, make a perfect circle around the gauge. But let me go ahead and at least get this half of the plate done. Okay, so there it is installed. I haven't cut it yet. Again, it goes around the outer edge of the gauge and goes down under here. When I get down under here, I'll just kind of curve it around just like I do up here, make it nice and smooth. This right here goes down, that way it's not in the way of anything here, it's not in the way of my sight. Also, not that it really matters, I have all this in my view, but I'll also have it this way, and then I'm just going to cut it up here for when I get my throttle cable linkage. I'll go ahead and install it, drill it out, make sure everything fits, and then I'll trim around that as well. So when I trim this out, I'll go ahead and set up the camera in the shed. So I have the plate made for the gauge. It's pretty much the way I wanted it. I wanted to make sure that I had enough metal back here to protect it in case anything hits it or the wind or anything like that affects it. I also trimmed right here where it's nice and smooth and a round edge, as you can see right there, fairly well. Same with up here. I want to make sure it was nice and round down this way, and goes to crap. So I'm leaving this alone for the moment. Probably in a week or two, I'll go ahead and finish this off, but I will show you guys this at first because this is primarily what I wanted to do. I'll do that when I do the throttle cable and basically the cable to the throttle itself, or the throttle levers itself. Doesn't look too bad. I mean, minus that. So, right there. As long as I keep that out, I'm good. Looks pretty decent. So we'll clean it up even more than it is right now. We'll refine it a little bit better, especially around the edges. We'll make sure everything's good on this side and the mounts. And then again, when we get the other part, we'll go ahead and trim it, make sure it's all fits well, and I'll show you the final product the next video. So we'll go ahead and finish off this and come back for one last look. Okay, so I finished the bracket, at least this half of it. So again, like I said before, this half right here, I need to get the throttle cable installed. Once I get it in about 2 weeks, I also have to finish the throttle linkage, which will be next week. But I did paint it black to see how it looked as one solid color, because it kind of gives you a illusion of it not being correct or not being straight when you actually have multiple colors on there, or shiny spot and a dull spot, and you know, the coating that was on it. So I went ahead and painted it all one color. It does look fairly well. Again, I can always adjust if I see anything wrong. This is nice and smooth all the way around. This will go down into basically the flat spot. And then over here, it'll go back up around where the throttle is. Again, I said it was probably gonna be right around here. I don't wanna do any modifications just yet until I actually get the throttle cable itself. It is coming. It will be probably 2 weeks. I think it's going to be here at the end of next week. So again, I hope you like the video. I hope you like this kind of stuff. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to leave them below. And hope to see you next video. Bye.